On October 16, 2025, Sanae Takaichi shattered tradition, making history in a way that captured the attention of the entire nation and the world beyond. Her victory was not just a personal milestone, but a turning point for Japanese politics. She became Japan's first female prime minister, breaking a glass ceiling that had stood for generations and inspiring millions across the country, especially women and young people who saw new possibilities for themselves in her achievement. Her campaign was built on bold promises: constitutional reform, a stronger self-defense force, and a tough stance against China. These pledges fueled expectations of a hawkish, US-aligned leader, determined to reshape Japan's role on the global stage and ensure national security. Supporters at home and policymakers in Washington alike anticipated a reliable partner, ready to reinforce the US-Japan alliance and confront Beijing's growing influence in the region. Many believed Takaichi would be a steadfast ally, strengthening ties with the West. The world braced for a new era of friction in East Asia. Analysts predicted a cooling of Tokyo-Beijing ties, deeper integration with the US-led Quad, and a more assertive Japanese foreign policy that could reshape the balance of power in the region. But as Takaichi took office, every move was scrutinized for signs of hardline nationalism. The media, both domestic and international, watched closely, eager to see if she would fulfill her campaign's tough rhetoric. Yet, behind the scenes, she was quietly rethinking Japan's priorities, consulting with advisors and weighing the nation's long-term interests over short-term political gains. The world expected an unyielding nationalist, but Takaichi was about to defy every assumption. Her approach would soon reveal a leader more complex and pragmatic than anyone had anticipated. Her leadership would send shockwaves from Washington to Beijing, redefining Japan's place in the world and setting the stage for a new chapter in global politics, one that no one saw coming. Just weeks into her term, Takaichi stunned the world by refusing to join new US-led tariffs against China. This bold move sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, as many had expected Japan to fall in line with Washington's strategy. Instead, Takaichi made it clear that Japan would not be pressured into policies that might harm its own interests. She argued that Japan's economic stability couldn't be sacrificed for a trade war with diminishing returns. The risks, she explained, were too great for Japanese businesses and workers, who depended on stable international markets. Takaichi emphasized that protecting jobs and ensuring growth were her top priorities. In a landmark Diet speech, she declared economic security the foundation of national security. She urged lawmakers to rethink old alliances and focus on what truly benefits the Japanese people, calling for a new era of pragmatic decision-making. Takaichi's pivot was clear: prosperity over ideology, engagement over confrontation. She sought to build bridges with neighbors, believing that dialogue and cooperation would bring more lasting benefits than conflict. Her administration opened talks with Beijing, exploring ways to reduce reliance on the US dollar and stabilize regional trade. These negotiations aimed to create new opportunities for Japanese businesses and strengthen economic ties across Asia. This was a direct challenge to American financial dominance and a bold step toward an Asia-centric economic bloc. Takaichi's vision was to make Japan a leader in shaping the region's future, not just a participant. Takaichi wasn't abandoning nationalism. She was redefining it as economic strength and autonomy. For her, true independence meant making choices that put Japan's prosperity first, even if it meant breaking with tradition. Japan would no longer be a follower. It would chart its own course through Asia. Takaichi's message was clear: Japan's destiny would be shaped by its own hands, guided by the needs and ambitions of its people. The world had expected a loyal ally, but Takaichi was signaling a new independent path. Her leadership marked the beginning of a bold chapter in Japan's history, one defined by pragmatism, resilience, and a renewed sense of national purpose. While Washington reeled, Japan's public responded with unexpected enthusiasm. Takaichi's pivot resonated with the youth, who craved a confident, self-directed Japan. Social media exploded with support, and her approval ratings soared. Business leaders, relieved to avoid choosing between China and the US, rallied behind her. Takaichi's policy united a nation weary of stagnation and subservience. Opposition parties struggled to criticize a move that was overwhelmingly popular. Once seen as divisive, Takaichi was now hailed as a unifying leader. She had consolidated power by tapping into Japan's desire for a new, assertive identity. Takaichi's pivot triggered immediate economic shifts. The yen strengthened, signaling confidence in Japan's new direction. Investors flocked to companies with Asian market exposure, and talk of deeper regional integration surged. Japan and China began exploring trade settlements in yen and yuan, bypassing the dollar. Japanese firms doubled down on Asia-centric supply chains, fueling regional growth. The RCEP Trade Pact gained new importance, with Japan and China as twin engines. Economic power was shifting to Asia, and Japan was at the heart of this transformation. Washington's response was immediate shock and deep confusion. The news from Tokyo sent ripples through the corridors of power, leaving American officials scrambling to understand what had just happened and what it meant for the future of the region. The US-Japan alliance, long considered the cornerstone of stability in the Pacific, was suddenly thrown into doubt. For decades, this partnership had been a bedrock of American strategy in Asia, but now its very foundation seemed to be at risk. Takaichi's dramatic pivot was seen in Washington as a profound betrayal, not merely a routine policy disagreement. It felt personal, a break in trust that had been carefully built over generations. Tense phone calls and a wave of critical media coverage quickly followed. Some commentators openly questioned whether the US security guarantee for Japan could still be relied upon, fueling anxiety on both sides of the Pacific. The trust underpinning the alliance was shaken to its core, forcing US strategists to urgently reconsider their entire regional posture and contingency plans. The long-held idea of Japan as an unsinkable aircraft carrier for US forces was now uncertain, raising questions about the future of joint military operations and forward deployment. The strain exposed a critical vulnerability in American foreign policy. Could the US really count on its allies to pay the economic price needed to contain China's growing influence? For Washington, this was more than a bilateral crisis. It was a wake-up call for its entire global alliance system, raising alarms from Europe to the Indo-Pacific. If Japan, America's closest Asian ally, could prioritize economic ties with China, what might other allies do when faced with similar choices? The uncertainty was palpable. Takaichi's unexpected move forced Washington to confront the real limits of its influence, both economic and diplomatic, in a rapidly changing world. The world order was shifting before America's eyes, and for the first time in decades, the US could no longer take the loyalty of its allies for granted. The stakes had never felt higher. Takaichi's policies sparked a profound shift in Japan's self-image. For the first time in generations, many saw Japan as an independent actor, not just a US follower. Economic pragmatism softened public attitudes toward China, even as mistrust lingered. Takaichi reframed nationalism as forward-looking economic strength, not historical grievance. Her message: Japan could do business with China without endorsing its politics. A new, confident national identity emerged, assertive, pragmatic, and focused on Japan's future. The era of post-war dependence was ending. Japan was now in the driver's seat. Japan's pivot under Takaichi has redrawn the global chessboard. The assumption of automatic alignment with the US is gone. Tokyo's focus on regional integration has created a new Asian center of gravity, independent from Washington. The US-Japan alliance, once the Indo-Pacific's bedrock, is now uncertain. A more integrated Asian bloc, with Japan and China at its core, challenges Western economic dominance. The supremacy of the US dollar is threatened as local currencies gain ground. Other nations see Japan's model and may follow, leading to a fragmented, multipolar world. The clear lines of a new Cold War have blurred, replaced by shifting alliances. Asia is now at the center of global power. Takaichi's premiership marks Japan's declaration of independence in the 21st century. No longer America's junior partner, Japan is forging its own path. Assertive, pragmatic, and eastward-looking. The US must now adapt as old alliances become more conditional and transactional. The Takaichi pivot signals the end of the unipolar moment and the rise of a multipolar world. Japan's new stance is reshaping global power, consolidating an Asian bloc driven by economic pragmatism. Alliances with the West will persist, but on new terms. Takaichi's legacy, a Japan that leads, not follows, and a world order forever changed. The world must now adapt to a Tokyo that is confidently, unapologetically, looking out for itself.